Servant Season 3, Episode 8 was titled Donut. Isabelle threatens to uncover Dorothy's past. What is going on to all my Servant fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down the latest episode of Apple TV Plus Servant Season 3, Episode 8, titled Donut. We only got a couple episodes left, but this episode, I said it a couple weeks ago, Isabelle, you had no business messing around with Leanne, and we'll talk about what happens to her at the end of this episode. And I have a really interesting theory that I'm excited to share with you all about Dorothy. We're breaking it all down here in this spoiler review, but before we dive into it, make sure you all are checking me out on all my other social media accounts. I love this community that we're building so much, and I want you to be a part of it. So if you love early movie reviews, TV reviews, live streams, well, come and join the community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And as you can see on the screen now, if you enjoyed this spoiler review of Servant, well, make sure to like this video, but also share the review to all the Servant fans you all know that love the show just as much as we do, but more importantly, as you all do every single week, and I appreciate every single one of you all. Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments, your pros and cons about this episode. What did you all think about the moment with Isabelle? What do you think about Dorothy in this episode? And of course, the growth that we're continuing to see with Leanne. Let's talk about everything in the comment section and what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead. So just my brief review before we break it down and recap it. I'm not going to lie. First 10 minutes or so, I'm like, is this kind of a filler, kind of unnecessary episode of just kind of maybe posing more questions or just kind of having like this isolated situation with Isabelle? The first 10 minutes were kind of like that, but after we get past certain reveals, certain moments here, and we get to the head shot moment, I was beyond just this season has been fantastic. It is definitely on the line, same kind of storytelling, same type of tone of season one. I have been saying it every single week. The growth, the character development that we've gotten with Leanne, the separation of the Turner family, the Easter eggs that we're getting from the biblical undertones. This season has really been on par as far as maybe even being better than season one in some instances. But again, the first half of the episode wasn't all that strong. It was just kind of, if I'm being honest, a little boring, but then it kind of set up a fantastic payoff. So again, I really enjoyed this episode, more so the second half than the first half, but I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. Let's get into the breakdown here as we open the episode with Leanne walking towards her new cult, which, by the way, let's come up with a name for this cult as a community. We got to think of some name, because right now they're just Leanne's cult, her people. Are we going to call them the Leannes? Are we going to call them the lesser saints? I can't think of a title. Let's come up with a title in the comments below. But as we move on, we see that they seem to be happy, and they're sharing balloons and all the smiles, and they're greeting Leanne, and she's wearing her bright yellow dress. And seriously, again, I can't stress enough the growth that we've gotten from Leanne, and now her not only controlling the Turner's household, but she now has her own following. This is everything she's ever wanted. What a great moment for the character. I'm loving the Leanne stuff that we got. And let me know what you all thought about that opening sequence as we cut to Dorothy, who is living in this house with two people she cannot stand right now as she's tossing out the tea that Leanne made for her. She declines to go on set with Sean for lunch. She is just pissed right now. And she even checks Leanne when Leanne bumps into her with the laundry. I told you not to go in my room. I don't want you going near any of my stuff. Again, Dorothy's standing her ground. She is the mama bear. She's letting, and I'm just saying to myself, listen, at this point of the show, if I'm Dorothy, I'm moving the hell out of there. But again, she's so strong-headed. She's so this narrow-headed that she's just like, I'm going to stand my ground. This is my family. I'm going to be the last person standing. We'll see how far that gets her. But it's in this moment, too, that she even tells Leanne. She looks at her right in the eye. I don't ever want you touching Jericho again. We'll see how long those threats can last with Leanne being the ruler and the leader of this house. But even more surprising, we see Dorothy is turning down news reports, and she tells them that she still hasn't found childcare, which obviously alludes to her not acknowledging Leanne there. Again, she's being firm, she's being strong, but I don't think that's going to last too much longer. Cutting to the next scene, Leanne in the park with her group, who are now essentially her security guards. They're doing block checks. They're checking for any signs of the lesser saints as we cut to Isabelle, who just happens to be running in the park the same time Leanne is on the bench crying because of what Dorothy just told her. And Isabelle is a perfect news reporter, right? She's like, oh, sharing her little stories about Dorothy when she was an intern. Her mom would tell her that Dorothy's a big b-hole and whatnot, and she just really is befriending Leanne at this point, right? She's trying to get into her good graces. I said it a couple weeks ago, Isabelle, you're messing with the wrong one, and it's going to get you killed, as we'll talk about that a little bit later. But more evidence, and listen, I love being wrong when it comes to my theories and predictions because I like to be surprised, right? And I'm not saying that I'm right here, but last week, a lot of you all, and you weren't being mean by any means, I love the conversations we have in the comments, and I appreciate every single one of you all, but a lot of people were like, Elliot, because I had said last week, I feel like there's some type of magical spell, some type of trance that Leanne has over Sean and Julian, and everyone was like, I don't think that's the case, I don't think she has it. Well, listen. If you see this scene here, and I love that Dorothy even addresses my question in this episode, but this scene here, as Julian walks into the kitchen, we see her, her and Leanne talking, and then she brings out the milk. Get me a glass. Pour me the milk. Keep pouring. Keep pouring. As it's overflowing, he had no control over what Leanne was making him do. I mean, obviously, he's overpouring and making a mess as Dorothy walks in, just like, what is going on? But again, going back to why I feel like she has this type of, I don't even know what to call it, this type of trance or it's this type of ability over these men, I think of what the show has given us with the women of the Lesser Saints. They seem to be the ones in control. They seem that they can control the men in the situation, whether you be, for example, Aunt May telling Uncle George what to do, whether it be, example, Aunt Josephina, and her control that she had over the situation. It seems like Leanne may have learned a thing or two from her previous aunts, and she's now in control of the men that she believes she has a hold over, a la, in this case, Julian and obviously Sean. And again, I can understand the whole, maybe Sean's not under a spell because he is more of a believer. He's more, he's seen the miracles that Leanne has done more so than, anyone else in the show. But I still feel like there's something more deeper that she has over them, especially when it goes to Julian, especially with him. A lot of us are saying, a lot of you all were thinking that Julian, he passed out last year. No, Julian died last year, and Leanne was the one that brought him back to life. So there's some type of connection there, but I still believe she has some type of power abilities to make these men do what she wants. Let's talk about it in the comments. But moving on, Sean goes around showing Dorothy what he's done since she's been gone. She's not impressed. She's like, listen, Sean, if you want to get your ass off the couch and back in the bed and back in my good graces, you know what you got to do. You got to get Leanne the hell out of here. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Dorothy even asks, and this is what I brought up earlier, she says, what is it that she has over you? What does she know? What is some dirt that she has on you? And he just says, I want her to take care of Jericho. She's doing a good job. But again, I love that Dorothy poses the question that I asked. What is it that she has over you? Is it some type of magical ability? Is it some type of trance? Is he just a believer in what she does? Again, let's talk about that in the comments. Cut to Sean sharing some little alone time with Leanne as he's just basically telling her, I miss my wife. I miss the times that we used to share and with our family. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, will Leanne find some way to magically make Dorothy fall back in love with Sean again? I don't know, is it a matter of the women can't control or put their powers on other women? But I wonder, is she going to try to help Sean in getting Dorothy in back to his good graces? Time for that coffee date with Isabelle. But really interesting moment before we have that. There's an ambulance there. One of the outhouse people are down with dehydration. She walks up to an MET person, hands them some money. And I'm thinking to myself, that was sketchy. That was weird. And I'm like, I wonder, and of course the show, confirms it, but even in this moment, I'm like, I wonder, was she like getting some information about Dorothy? Because again, the synopsis, she digs up dirt around Dorothy and she finds some dirt that we'll talk about here a little bit later. But cutting into the actual conversation, Leanne has invited her in at this point, and we see that Isabelle is there for information on Dorothy. Is it me or, and at this point in the episode, I'm like, this is a little nitpick. This is the second time this season that Leanne has done something very clumsy, and I think the staging of it just looks so weird. When she pushed Sean, or like accidentally pushed Sean into the hole, I think that was more of a metaphor of her, him looking up at her. But then when she's drinking the coffee and spills it on herself, I'm like, was that intentional? Did she do that on purpose for what she's going to do later in the episode, or was it just a clumsy scene? Let me know. I might be looking too much into it there. But going back into it, as Isabelle asks her, is everything okay with Dorothy? She's worried about her. There's something, I saw the ambulance out there, and, it made me think about what happened last year. Jericho, did something terrible happen to her? And we see Leanne is kind of like, no. And she sees a scar on her arm. No. And by the way, Leanne, not a good way to cover up your tracks. But she's like, She could have said anything. She could have said, I fell off my bike. I cut myself on the fence in the backyard, a couple months ago. She's like, the first thing she says, no, Dorothy didn't do this. Come on, Leanne, you couldn't be more obvious about who cut you, and that was Dorothy from last year. But anyway, we see Isabelle notices that scar, and I'm thinking to myself, is Leanne just playing her? Is she just allowing her to think that she's befriending her? Because I'm like, just last week, you saw right through, what's her name? Nancy, you saw through her BS, but why isn't she calling out Isabelle? She does something worse to Isabelle a little bit later, which we'll get into. But let me know if you all think that she was genuinely thinking that Isabelle was being nice to her, or if she was just feeding into her BS. Let's talk about that in the comment section. Moving on, we see that the basement has finally been fixed. This basement hole has been there, I don't know, it feels like forever, but it's been fixed now. But Sean notices there's a bunch of termites in the house. And again, I always talk about this house. Not only do I think it's a metaphor of what the Turners are going through, like literally the foundation of this family is crumbling apart from that, stuff in the attic, stuff in the basement. The house is falling apart, but also the family's falling apart. But now there are termites in the house, alluding to this house is rotting from the inside out. As we cut to Leanne outside with her people who are looking to be meditating, but also it looks more like they're praying to Leanne, as we see her say to them, what did you all do today? Did you overhear that conversation that the pretty young lady was having with the EMT? And they said, no, she just seemed to be very upset. Again, the fact that she has her people, which again, I want to go ahead and see those comments. What's the name that we're going to give the lesser saints, aka the Leannes? But again, just seeing her, them feeding her information, it's just so crazy to think about Leanne season 1, how she was just this vulnerable, scared girl from like the Midwest, Wisconsin, I think, and now she has her own crew, her own bodyguards of a sense. I love that character arc for Leanne. We see that Leanne give them a speech to them about not being afraid anymore, and she pokes herself in the finger with the dagger, which was obviously a big, relic from last season and something that she feared over, but she pokes herself, and then she gives the dagger to the rest of the group that we don't have a name for yet. But I thought it was very interesting, speaking to like kind of biblical undertones. It's almost like that was like a form of communion, as everyone else is poking themselves with a dagger, and it's almost like the blood of Christ, right? Like eating the communion and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm way off on that, but it felt like very communal and very like communion based, with them stabbing themselves in the finger with the same blood on the tip of it that Leanne did. As we cut to this, one of my favorite shots of the entire episode. No, this actually is my favorite shot, as Leanne walks in the house and sees Dorothy, who's at this point still giving her shade, and we see Leanne holding the dagger behind her back. And Leanne, she invites Dorothy, hey, maybe you can be part of our friends. We would love to see you kind of join us, which might be the case at the end of the season. We don't know. But my favorite shot is when she's walking by Dorothy with the dagger, and they allude to her maybe stabbing her in the back. Might be foreshadowing, but I love that shot right there. And surprise, 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 as Isabelle is at the house now, and she's got some news. Get it? She's got some news because she's a news reporter. Okay, a little bit of a corny joke, but she got some news for Dorothy, and she tells her she knows what she did. She's going to end her career, and she doesn't know how she got away with it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, is she, and then we even hear Dorothy say to her, you don't know the whole truth. You don't know what's going on. You need more context. And, obviously Isabelle walks away, and Leanne hears this conversation, which is very key to what happens to Isabelle a little bit later. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, is Dorothy acknowledging what happened to Jericho? And we talked about that last week when she says, I'm not going through this again, right? And we all kind of summarize that she's talking about not having Jericho be kidnapped again. But in this moment, I think she's alluding to, you don't know the context of why I abused Leanne last year. You don't know the context of why I kidnapped Leanne last year and drugged her last year. That's what I think she was alluding to, more so than like, you don't know what happened in Jericho. You don't know what I was going through as a mom. I think she was more alluding to the abuse that she gave to Leanne last year. Let me know how you all interpreted that scene. But going back, Isabelle now talking to Leanne outside as she's been investigating her. She talks about how she found out what happened last year. She looked up the death records to find out that this baby isn't Jericho. So is it your child? Where'd you get the child? She's doing all that. Leanne don't really want to hear all that. She just has one question for her. Were you lying to me this whole time? Were you just trying to pretend to be my friend to get information on Dorothy? Which, again, goes back to my question I asked earlier. Maybe she just had a little bit of ounce, like, oh, this is a person that genuinely is interested in me and cares about my well-being. But once she finds out that she was trying to manipulate her, that was the last time Isabelle is going to do that. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But moving on, very interesting line of dialogue between Dorothy and Leanne as she tells Dorothy, any mother would have done what you did last year. Now, wait a minute. When she says that to Dorothy, and this is my big theory that I always love to throw at you all, did Dorothy intentionally hire Leanne in season 1, knowing that Leanne was a servant, because we know that Dorothy was investigating the Lesser Saints members, probably got a lot of information on them. And again, my whole theory about maybe Dorothy and Julian's mom is a member of the Lesser Saints and she really knows what they're about. But she knew what the servants are capable of doing, resurrecting, bringing people back, and she intentionally hired Leanne knowing that she can bring Jericho back. Because again, Leanne saying to her, any mother would have done what you did at any cost to do what she did to Jericho, might allude to Dorothy knowing what happened to Jericho and hiring Leanne knowing that she's a servant. I don't know. Let's talk about it in the comments. Cut to Courtney with a K making her return. Or to say Leanne and Julian hooked up again because, again, she seems like she has control over him. You need to have, and to pleasure yourself. So they're still hooking up at this point. But very interesting conversation between Dorothy and her father as she wants to have her dad help her institutionalize Leanne, which makes me think, okay, he's done this before. Has he put their mother in the institute and crazy in the nut house? And are they going to be able to do the same with Leanne? I highly doubt that. But very interesting conversation between those two. And again, I love that Courtney with a K made her return. But cutting back to breaking news, there is a shootout that Isabelle is covering, and Leanne believes that she deserves to be there. We all know what Leanne's capable of, whether it be the beehives, whether it be the finger going missing, the seagulls. Now this, as we see Isabelle is told to kind of back away from this active shooting scene, she's starting to talk. And listen, Isabelle, I tried to warn you, you don't need to be digging into Leanne and her past, as boom, shot goes through the window, shooting her right in the head. Oh, I talked about my favorite shot in the scene. This might be my favorite scene of this entire season so far. Everyone's shocked. Did we just see someone get murdered on live television? Dorothy turns around, makes eye contact to Leanne, who's at this point smiling, happy what she just did. What an incredible scene. Again, she is full-blown villain at this point. I love that shot. Let me know what you all thought about it. But again, it speaks to Leanne. She was pretending to be friends with Isabelle. Oh, Isabelle, you want to pretend to be my friend? I got something for you. I'm going to blow your mind. Literally in this scene. As we wrap up, Leanne really meant it when she says she's going to do anything and everything to protect her family, because Isabelle was going to snitch on Dorothy, but Leanne ain't going to let that happen. She's going to protect the ones that she loves. So, in a way, we end the episode again. I'm trying to think of this title, Donut. So I'm looking up, I'm Googling donut. What does donuts mean? I know donuts are good. They're tasty, circular, round, all that stuff. But what's the deeper meaning? So I found something online. This might be completely off here, but according to, you're searching what donuts mean, it's a symbol, nothing less than American democracy, a food that soldiers ate in order to defend their country. Donuts are for soldiers who want to defend their country. Kind of, relate that to the show. Donut being Leanne trying to defend her family. I might be wrong, but let me know what you all think of the title. Let me know what you all thought of the episode. Favorite moments, least favorite moments. Do you think we're on to something about Dorothy intentionally hiring Leanne, knowing that she's a servant, to resurrect Julian? Well, she did resurrect Julian, but to resurrect Jericho? Let's talk about that in the comment section. Do you believe me now when I said that Julian and Sean are maybe on some type of trance due to the women of the Lesser Saints having some type of control over Mills? And also, what are we going to name Leanne's new group? Let's talk about that in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed this review. Before you all leave, make sure to like the video, share the video, comment below. Come and join this community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you enjoyed the review. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to the channel. Check out my other content. We'll catch you on the next video.